A lot of great things went on this afternoon and this evening with talkers and speakers about change. But my first thing, it's a couple of questions. If you knew that you could make the impossible possible, would you? If you knew that there was only 3 steps that you had to take to change your life, your practice, and your world, would you take them? The problem that I see with most of you, how many would say yes to both those questions? Right? So just from watching the room, 1/3 of you raised your hands all the way up, 1/3 of them was semi-committed, and the other 1/3 was whatever. So what happens is most of us spend our life in a comfort zone. So if you can imagine a box around my feet with a wall, you know, boxes have walls, right? Those walls that make up our comfort zone really keep us from stepping out and experiencing the life that we want. So my question to you tonight is, what makes up your walls, your comfort zone? But before we go there, what's in a comfort zone? Anybody? Safety. What else? Comfort. Safety, comfort, plain vanilla, mundane, not being able to raise your hand because, God forbid, I said the wrong answer. What would people think about me? And notice, I can't move because I got this box around me. And what people do, and they go, well, I'm going to step out of my comfort zone and make a difference in the world. And you know what they do? They move the box over. They go, see, I'm so much better. But the walls are still the same. What makes up your walls? Your fear, your anxiety, your worry, your tension. And most of it is revolved around me. And what do I mean by that? What are people going to think of me? What are they going to think of what they say? How am I going to look in their eyes? And you know what? If you want to get out of your comfort zone, the first thing you got to do is get out of the me and go into the you. All right? Because your passion, your commitment, your dedication, something has to be strong enough in your life to get you to take that step out of the comfort zone, not just move it. So my question is still, what makes up your walls? Because if you're not willing to admit to the walls around your comfort zone, you're just going to keep shuffling this box around. You know, your practice is going to get to a certain level. Your income is going to get to a certain level. All these things are just going to keep you stuck in this little zone. Some people actually take their feet and stretch the box a little bit. Right? Because, you know, when you're in your comfort zone, what's the number one thing that happens when you step out of your comfort zone? Anybody? You're scared. It's fear. It's petrifying. But what's fear other than energy, right? Anybody ever ride on a roller coaster? Why the hell would you do that? When you're doing that climb and it's going, I just read there's some roller coaster they opened up in Ohio that has like a 1/4 mile drop and gets down to 90 feet and it's straight down. Why would people do that? Because we like the energy, we like the electricity that happens in our body when we do it. You know, we feel like we're in a comfort zone in that little car doing 90 miles an hour straight down. It's that adrenaline rush. That's what fear is, but we feel we have control over that. And we, you know, when we decide to step out of that comfort zone and start walking into this powerful, beautiful world we have, the first thing we want to do, it's like, not the roller coaster, but in real life, is we want to jump right back in. Because that was cool, but I don't know if I can handle that energy for so much. Right? But how many of you would go back on the roller coaster a second time? Or a third time, or a fourth time? Because that's an adrenaline rush that we feel we can handle because it's not putting ourselves on the line. See, the greatest fear is putting ourselves on the line and that we're going to fail at what we do. And the only failure that really is the person who falls down 7 times and doesn't get up the 8th time. That's the only failure. There is no failure in life. Right? But if you want to make the impossible possible, You have to be willing to take a risk. You have to be willing to step out of that comfort zone and get into a world of the unknown. And the scary thing is, we live in a world of the unknown. Who knows what tomorrow is going to be like? We can't predict it. We don't know if we're going to be alive. DJ just showed me a eulogy, or what do they call those things in the newspaper? An obituary of a friend of mine that died a month ago that I didn't even know. My age. He didn't plan on it. It wasn't something that happened. You know, it's like one of the docs that worked in my office. She was doing great. Her business was doing great. She gets a call that her parents were both killed in a car accident. She didn't plan on it. So what are you planning for? Right? It's really, how many people plan for the future? Anybody here plan for the future? It's a waste of friggin' time. It's a waste of time. Because you can't plan for the future that you don't know. What you can do is prepare for the future. You can prepare for things that may or may not happen. You could be okay. You could have a safety net. Whether it's a financial safety net, a family safety net. But you know what? You can plan. I mean, I planned for my father to live to 110, and he died at 68. You can't plan. But what you can do in that preparation, and Eric said it, you know, we spend a huge amount of time working on ourselves. That true? Anybody here do that? You know, well, you know what? Stop working on yourself. Give yourself a break. Start having some fun in life. You don't have to constantly work on yourself. It's like having a ball of clay in your hand, and you keep working it, and keep working it, and keep working it, and keep working it. And as it keeps squeezing, all of a sudden, you got nothing in your hand. To me, it's all about having a lot of fun in life. And the only way you can do that, how many people have fun in practice? I love going into the practice the 1 or 2 days a month I show up. I had to say that for Josh. Right? Why? Because I love what I do. See, here's a magic lesson for all of you. If you could love what you do when you're doing it, you'll never have a bad day. Never. When I'm in practice, I love what I do. When I'm traveling around the world, I love what I do. When I'm hanging out with my family, I love what I do. I make it my job to constantly step out of my comfort zone. You know, I loved what was Eric and Kevin said, go to work, go to work. You know, think and work, think and work, think and work. I don't buy into that. I like thinking and have other people work. That's why me and Kevin get along so well. I think he works. I think he works. I think he works. Sometimes we work together. Sometimes we think together. But he works, he works, he works. He has another good idea. You know, I always say I'm his consigliere. I just advise. But in that, I'm willing to open my mouth and make a difference and stand up for what I believe. Being on the New Beginnings board, being on the Life board, running Inner Winners with Chuck Wrigley. My job very often is taking that comfort zone and pushing people out of it. Because most people don't like getting out of their comfort zone. You know, how many people in here have done a firewalk with me? Look around. Look at all these crazy people. But here's the question, and this is where the action. How many use that firewalk as a metaphor to change their lives? All right? That's the magic. Because the only reason you want to step out of your comfort zone is to change your life. Is to change your life. So one of the things with the firewalk for me, like I said, there were three steps you could take to make the impossible possible. There are 3 steps you can take to change your life in an instant. So we're going to talk about the first step. Everybody pay close attention. The first step. The first step is the first step. Right? The first step is moving forward. How many of you, and like, you know, going back to Eric and Kevin and Kathy and Christine, the first step is, I'm thinking. I think I should get out of the comfort zone. I think I should take a step. Maybe I should get involved. Maybe I won't get involved. You know, if I get involved, this is going to cost me too much money. If I show up there and they don't like me, I'm going to feel guilty. I'm going to feel unwanted, and you know, I'm got lack of need. I don't know if it'll affect my confidence. And how many hours do you spend a day talking yourself out of life and staying in the comfort zone? So the first step, and we'll go back to the firewalk. One of my favorite firewalks, there was this one guy that came up to a firewalk. It was like a 20-foot firewalk, and he came up, and I mean, these coals were bright red. You can look down. It was really cool. And he keeps going like this. I'm going to see if it's hot enough. You know, maybe I'll touch it. In life, how many of you just do that with the first step? You get on a balance, you go, nah. And you know, the most interesting thing with first steps, how many of us talk ourselves out of taking them? How many of us talk ourselves out of taking an action step that we know in our hearts is going to make a difference in our life? How many of us don't go somewhere or show up because we're afraid that if we learn something and it shook our belief system, we'd have to do something about it, and it's much safer not to? You know, it's really very interesting how you can make that impossible possible. Like, I'll look at the comfort zone, and I can only use my chiropractic world. I mean, 3 years ago, if you would speak to chiropractors from all the principal schools and said you go to all the presidents, go, hey, listen, why don't we get together and just talk about how we can take chiropractic to the next level? How many of you think that those 6 or 7 presidents would want to get together? You ever be in a room with 6 college presidents and their egos? There's not enough room. You can't fit in. Right? But you know what? Chuck had an idea, and he spoke to Guy about it. And after 3 years, they came up with a thing called the Rubicon that nobody ever thought would exist. But you know what? Sherman, Life, McTimoney, Barcelona, New Zealand, all got together for a meeting and presented together and started to think how they can join forces to keep principled chiropractic principles and take it around the world. You know what? Half a dozen years ago, that was impossible. But to me, the only difference between the impossible and the possible is the possible takes a little bit longer. Takes a little bit more persistence. Takes a little bit more passion and a little bit more commitment. But you have to be willing to step up. You have to be willing to get out of your comfort zones, to be able to do stuff that really shakes you to the bone, to get excited, to get passionate, to make a difference. You know, so that was the Rubicon. 15 years, no, I'm on the board 7.5 years. 7.5, 8 years ago at Life, somebody had the idea, what would happen if we just invited all these prospective students to school and wined and dined them and did a ropes course so they could actually look inside and make qualified choices as to whether they want to be in chiropractic school or not. Because being on the board, I can tell you one of the biggest problems with prospective students or students their first year in practice or in school, if they not sure that they want to be there, chiropractic school is tough. And so there's a huge attrition rate. So we don't want students coming into our schools going, well, you know, I'm not sure, I didn't want a medical, but I could have been pharmacy, so maybe I'll show up there. So now we give them a program that gets them to look at their world. And like we said, by the end of this weekend, you're going to know one of 2 things. Either you want to be a chiropractor or you don't. And you know what? The attrition rate went down. First, second, third quarter students stayed in school because they knew that's what they wanted to be. But we pushed them out of their comfort zone where they had to make a decision. We did some experiential training with them. So I only got a few minutes left, so a quick story about how the impossible possible can make a difference. At one of my Inner Winners program, we're out in a Winners program with Chuck and Kathy and Ruth, we had this woman that, when I talk about pushing people out of the comfort zone, this woman, Beth, literally dragged her daughter to an Inner Winners program. And the reason she did, 3 weeks earlier, she drove her car into a tree to try and commit suicide. She was an 18-year-old kid, I think. And she just dragged her to one of our programs. And the program back then was like 4 or 5 days. And the first day, all she did was sit like this. So usually in my past, I would have said, well, screw her. I don't give a shit. She don't want to be here. I'll work with somebody who does. But what I realized is we just kept tapping on the egg, tapping on the egg. Well, anyway, it finally got to Saturday night, which was the firewalk. Now, to backstep a little bit, this was a kid, she broke her pelvis in the car accident. So she was trying to go through the program on crutches, of course, and feeling really bad about herself. You know, she'd drag her legs in the crutches. So now she comes up to the firewalk, and me and Chuck look at each other and go, oh shit, I hope she doesn't want to walk. You know, we don't want somebody dragging their legs through the fire, you know, in the crutches and watching the crutches burn up to the handles and shit. You know, it's hot. It's 1,800 degrees. I mean, this stuff is real. You guys know, you walked on it. So anyway, she finally gets up, and all of a sudden you see her entire face just change, like you know, her eyes just become totally focused on the other side of the fire. And what we do when we do these firewalks is like put something on the other side that is so important and it's gonna, you want more than anything in the world, so that when you step out of your comfort zone and you step on 1,800 degree coals, you're gonna go walk to it. You're not gonna, oh, ow, oh, oh, ow, oh, I'm gonna get off it. All right, so we did it. And all of a sudden she comes up and she's in the front of the fire and she's looking at it and she has her crutches and she starts, first step, and we go, and me and Chuck go, oh no. And then she said, second step. Now, most people, if you've seen the firewalk, they go, okay, I'm done. All right, well, she couldn't do it. So she starts one step, two step, three step, and her physiology starts to change. And she's holding herself up, and she's walking quicker, and then the crutches aren't touching the ground. She gets to the end of the fire, picks up the crutches, goes, no more! And she threw them down, the crutches went up in flames. And at that point, she said, I don't need the crutches anymore. And the mother goes, you got another 3.5 weeks with the crutches. What are you, crazy? We're going to get, let's get some twigs for you, you know, to balance yourself. Goes, nope, it's healed. Making the long story short, she goes, great change. She goes home. She goes to the orthopedist. Mother goes, we're going to the orthopedist. You're going to get another set of crutches. She goes in, the orthopedist goes, what'd you do? She goes, I don't need them anymore. My hips are healed. She goes, what? Yeah, I said, I spent 5 days getting adjusted. I walked on fire. I'm done. That's it. He goes, well, you can't do it. She goes, take another set of x-rays. The hips were healed. All right? Talking about the quantum field tonight. Talking about the energy you put out to the energy you get back in. Somebody's talking about intention. All right? Does intention make a difference in your life? Does intention make a difference in your adjustment? Does intention make a difference in your thoughts? 100% so. Anybody, a monkey can move friggin' bones. Anybody can be taught to manipulate. It's the intention you have behind that adjustment, behind your hands, in your heart, that makes a difference. The intention that this girl went across the fire with changed her life. So what are you going to do to step out of your comfort zone? What are you going to do, as Kevin would put time, talent, and money, and put all this stuff where your mouth is? Why is it so important? Because you know what? And Peter will tell you being on the board, and we see it. There are so many people throwing rocks at us. You know what? Stop throwing rocks. Start throwing dollars. We need the money more than rocks, because if chiropractic is to survive, it's up to us. As Kevin said, if it's to be, it's up to me. Step out of your friggin' comfort zone, take a step, walk the fires, make a difference in your life, and when you make that difference in your life, what happens to the world? It changes in a heartbeat. One step. Now, if you want to hear the next 2 steps, you'll have to come to a program. Thank you all.